This is like the end of 1987. This was from Tesvav Cheshvan, Shabbos Tesvav Cheshvan. In other words, it was the Kvias, like this year, that Shabbos Parshas Vayera comes out on the 15th of Marcheshvan. So the Rebbe this year was like, seems to be very interestingly trying to extend Tishrei as far as possible. Different years the Rebbe spoke about the concept of V'Yaakov Holcha Darka. It's not just on the end of Simchas Torah Yaakov goes on his way that they announced in Lubavitch, but it's the end of Shabbos Bereishis. But when it's still Tishrei, it's not that way. It's Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, or not even Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. It's the 7th of Cheshvan, because 7th of Cheshvan was a date that the last Jew in Eretz that was Oilo Regel reached his location, Eretz Yisrael, Nahar Pros, the river Euphrates, and that's why they were able to save the Saint Halmat Levracha in Eretz Yisrael, beginning the night going into the 7th of Cheshvan. Here, the Rebbe extends it even further to the 15th of Cheshvan. That up until the 15th of Cheshvan, we're still part of the continuation of the mood of Tishrei, and that continuation of the mood of Tishrei by the Rebbe includes even the idea of Simcha of Tishrei. It's actually, that year was a Shnas Hakil, so the Rebbe is going to talk about both the Simcha of Tishrei and the Hakil of Tishrei goes into even the 15th of Cheshvan, as he's going to explain in the Sikh. Okay, let's begin from Aleph. Ilyanishal Tesvav Marcheshvan, the idea of the date, the 15th of Marcheshvan, Sheboy Kayim Masira Bashla Musa. On the 15th of the month, the moon is complete. The moon is full. That's what happens on the 15th of the month. The first of the month is the birth of the new moon, and the 15th of the month is when it reaches its fullness, and then it begins to decrease. V'dugmasai b'Yisrael, and its similarity and corresponding level amongst the Yidden is Shemoinin Levana. The Jewish people count their calendar. They determine it according to the moon, not like the nations of the world that they use only a solar calendar, whereas by the Yidden, all our ceremonial dates and so on are based on a lunar calendar. And why do we follow the lunar calendar? So the Chazal say, Lefisha doimin levana, because the Yidden are likened and compared to the moon. Vasidim lischadish kemoisa, and when Mashiach comes, we will be renewed, just like the moon will be renewed on. Just like the moon is renewed every 15th of the month, when Mashiach comes, we will be renewed just like the new moon. Therefore, since Yidden are compared to the moon, etc., so there's a significance of the 15th of the calendar month concerning its impact upon the Yidden. On the 15th of the month becomes the completion and perfection of the avoida of the Yidden. Just like the moon is full, it's whole, it's complete. It's not a slice of the moon, but it's a full moon on the 15th of the month. The same thing, Yidden in their avoida are complete on the 15th of the month. Bechol inyana yadus, in all matters of Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvah, Torah and its mitzvahs, especially concerning matters of avodah that are unique to this month, Chodesh Marcheshvan. In other words, it's the 15th of the month of Marcheshvan. That means that it's the fullness, it's the completion of the service of whatever the service of the month of Marcheshvan is about. That's what it is full in. That is what it is complete in. So he says, the concept behind this is Chodesh Marcheshvan hu hamayver mechodesh Tishrei hameruba memoedos. The month of Marcheshvan is a crossover. It's a transition from the month of Tishrei. That Tishrei is known to be filled with Yom Tovim. Lishar Chodshei Hashonim, to the other months or much Yom Tovim, to the rest of the months of the year. Shebahem Ikar Avodah Binyonei Olam. Then the rest of the year, primarily our service are in worldly matters. Ish tachas gafnei v'tachas teinosoi, every man under his vine and under his fig tree. Lasis lo yisbarach dir betachtoinim dafke, to make for Hashem a home below specifically. That's why it was necessary for this transition to take place, because it's necessary to come out of that state, that spiritual state of Tishrei, and bring it into the world that we have to make a home for Hashem. So he says in line 8, therefore, in the month of Marcheshvan, there are two aspects. Aleph, Hemshech, a continuation, Ad Legmar V'Siyum Ha'aliyah L'Regel B'Chag HaSukkos, till the conclusion and the end of the pilgrimage that took place on the Yom Tov of Sukkos. Ad Shiva B'Marcheshvan, until the 7th of Marcheshvan. As we mentioned before, since the last Jew that was obligated to be Oila Regel, to go up to Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash for one of the regalim, for one of the pilgrimage festivals, which is Sukkot, the last Jew lived a distance that would take him to get there by the 7th of Marcheshvan, which means that as long as the 7th of Marcheshvan has not yet arrived, it's still under the influence and under the specialness of being Oila Regel, of going up to the Beis HaMikdash for Sukkot. That is one aspect, on the one hand, of what we have in at least part of the month of Marcheshvan, the first week of Marcheshvan, this continuation of the Oila Regel of Sukkot. Beis, another component of Marcheshvan is Hascholos Havodah Binyonei Olam, the beginning of our service and work in matters of the world, Meshiv of Marcheshvan Ve'elech, from the 7th of Marcheshvan and on. V'chiburam Yachad B'chodesh Echad, the fact that they are both joined in one month, the same month, has in it the experience still of Oila Regel, which is outside of the world, transcending the world, and at the same time, in the same month, meaning the same lunar month, we have also the engaging with the world. Indicates the drawing down of the matters of the month of Tishrei upon and throughout the entire year. Like the well-known expression that the Rabbeim used, that when it comes after Tishrei, it's the previous Rebbe brought this down in his Sichos, that it's a time now fanander packen de peklach, to unpack our luggage. When a person used to go to the fair, to the market, to buy all types of material wholesale, to be able to sell in the Shtetlach, or to be able to sell as a peddler or in his store or whatever. So once the excitement of the travels and the going to the fair and the market city and so on died down, he made it home. So now it comes time to unpack. So that is a metaphor for what we are supposed to do after Tishrei. Kalaymar, this means to unpack the spiritual luggage that every single person acquired throughout the month of Tishrei, to draw it down the avodah that Yaakov was going on his way throughout the entire year. So this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to unpack and bring this through the entire year. But Shleimus Avodah the Chodesh Marcheshvan and the ultimate service of the month of Marcheshvan is Ka'amor, like we said, B'tesvav Marcheshvan. That is the highlight. That's the apex. That's the reaching the peak. Shaboy Kaim Masira the Chodesh Marcheshvan Bashlemusa. Since that is the time when the moon of the month of Marcheshvan is full, that means also that the spiritual avodah that we just now explained is also in a state of fullness. Shleimus hein biyachas liyamim shalifnei. It is both a completion and a fullness in comparison to the days prior to the 15th of Marcheshvan, including also the Yom Tov of Sukkot that preceded it, and so on. Ve'hein biyachas liyamim shalachriza. Also, it is considered full and complete in comparison to the days following it. Because also the days, or the avoidance the days following it, is by the power of the perfection of the 15th of Marcheshvan. In other words, the wholeness and the fullness of the moon is what gives us the energy to go on the rest of the month when the moon is not full. So then he says in line 16 of Bad Goshi, this is even more emphasized in this year. This both the twofold relationship of the 15th, its relationship to before and its relationship to afterwards. Because Shetes Vav Marcheshvan Chal B'Yom Shabbos, the 15th of Marcheshvan comes out on Shabbos, and therefore, since it comes out on Shabbos, Shabbos also has this concept, both perfecting, completing what took place the entire week before, and energizing and influencing the following week. Shashleimus Higam Tzad Miles HaShabbos, at the perfection and completion of the 15th of Marcheshvan is also because of the quality of Shabbos. Like we said before, both the perfection in regards and comparison to the days preceding this, in a way of completion. Just like on the first Shabbos it says, Vayechulu, they were completed, meaning that only on Shabbos did we find the completion and the perfection of the entire week prior to that. Until the level of delight, because Vayichulu is also from the word klois hanefesh, the outpouring of the soul. So in other words, Shabbos, which we know is also about taking delight, v'karosel Shabbos oinug, it's a mitzvah to delight in Shabbos, is about bringing the previous week to such a state of completion that now we delight in it. By the way, Chassidus also speaks in a very practical sense. This idea of delight that we have to have on Shabbos is connected with Shabbos being the conclusion of the entire creation. Just like when a person works on something and then they finish it, they look back and now they're enjoying what they have done during the work. It's not really possible to fully enjoy what they have done, to sit back and look what I've created. On Shabbos, it's Kaviyachol Hashem's taking pleasure and delight in the creation of the world. And so too, we are delighting, meaning reaching the completion and the perfection of the entire week prior to that. And also Shabbos, like we said about the 15th of Marcheshvan, influences and gives power and energy to the following week. Also the perfection in regards to the days following this. Min name is Barchen Kol Yomin, as the Zohar says, that from Shabbos, all the rest of the days of the week following it get their bracha. Therefore, he says, Nois Beis, line 19, Al Pisa, moving according to this, understood. Asher Bamdeinu B'Yem Shabbos, Kodesh Tesvav Marcheshvan, standing on the date of the day of the Holy Shabbos, the 15th of Marcheshvan, Misugol Hazman B'Yoser Lahoisif B'Yeser Seisu B'Yeser Oiz. It is an auspicious time to increase in a much more powerful way. Ad Lo'ofen Shel Shleim is still a way of perfection. B'Hamshachas in Yonei Chodesh Tishrei Alu B'Chol Shana Kula, in drawing down matters in the month of Tishrei upon and throughout the entire year. So here's where the Rebbe is going to focus on the idea of Sukkot, especially. Especially the 15th of Marcheshvan coming out on Shabbos is a time where we could take the energy from the Yom Tov of Sukkot, that was like the last Yom Tov which we're coming from. Whether we are taking the energy of Sukkot, which is about the general idea of joy, the time of our rejoicing, and we are now transmitting this and transferring this to the rest of the year. V'heim b'negel inyan hakel, also concerning the idea of the hakel that takes place on the 8th year after the Shemitah, which the year Tafshin Memches, when the Sikha was said, was a Shnas Hakel. The Rebbe says on the next page, top of the page, he says, Ubefrat, and especially, Shebishneim Mudgish HaHemshech B'chol HaShana. Both of these components that we are trying to bring from Sukkot into the rest of the year, both of those things have to do with the entire year. The year was Tafshin Memches. Tafshin Memches spells the word, you should rejoice. The year on the calendar, the number of the year on the calendar, that itself indicates the idea of joy. Beloshen Tzivui, the fact that it says Tismach, you should be happy. First of all, it's in the way of a command. And also, V'gam Beloshen Avtocha, it can also be read as a promise that you will be happy. Not just you should be happy, but you will be happy. Ubenegel Hakel, Shnas Hakel, concerning Hakel, so it's a year of Hakel, the Rebbe emphasized, even though normally, just reading superficially all the texts about it, Hakel was an event that took place on Sukkot with the king on the year after the Shemitah. But the Rebbe said, no. That throughout the entire year there is a command for the effect of Hakel, like the Rebbe spoke that year at length about how it's not just about the Hakel that took place on Sukkot, but it's an ongoing annual type of situation. The entire year is a Shnas Hakel, a year of Hakel. So, in general, we are talking about Sukkot through Cheshvan is transitioning and bringing these two things into the rest of the year. The crux of it, the main area of it, where we see this primary perfection of this transition, is on this date, Shabbos, the 15th of Marcheshvan. So he says in line 4, B'shneyem, in both of these, Simcha v'Hakel, both the joy and the idea of Hakel, Nifal Inyan Ashlemis B'yam Shabbos Kodesh Zeh Tesvav Marcheshvan, is affected, the perfection in the day of the holy day of Shabbos, in this particular Shabbos, the 15th of Marcheshvan. Look at the footnote. He says in footnote 20, he says, whether you could read it or not, it might be too small for your screen. Lahoir gam sheichusam leparsha shavua. The Rebbe says that both Simcha and Hakel have to do with the parsha of the week. Simcha, joy, we find our parsha Leidas Yitzchak. In our parsha, in Parshas Vayera, it tells the story of Yitzchak being born. Al Shem Kol Hashemeh Yitzchak Li. It's called, why is he called Yitzchak? Because whoever hears about it will be Yitzchak for me. And Rashi explains, Yismach Olai, will be joyous on my behalf. So therefore, we find that the Parsha also has to do with the idea of Simcha. And then the Rebbe also brings down the rest of the footnote that Avram Avinu's planting of an Eshel in Beersheba is also Bar Hakil. But let's go back to the text itself, line 5, Ois Gim. We can add concerning the perfection of the 15th of Marcheshvan, Shechayderes Bechol Adargis. It permeates all the levels. Me'adarga hachi al yoina ad ledarga hachi tachtoina, from the most highest level to the lowest level. Hashlemis desira b'tesva b'chodeshi b'chol adargis. The perfection of the moon in the 15th of the month is in all the levels. Hachil mishar shalamaylam, beginning from the root of the level of the moon above. Sfiras hamalchus. The Sfira of Malchus is likened to the moon. The Sphiras above Malchus, what's called Ze'er Ampin, are likened to the sun. Malchus is likened to the moon. So therefore, if we talk about the 15th of the month being the perfection of our physical moon, so it's not just our physical moon, but it's all the way up to Malchus, the Atzilus, which is also reaches its peak and perfection at this time. Even including the root and the source of the Sfira of Malchus. They descended in a chain descent from them, meaning from the Sfira of Malchus, into all the levels beneath Malchus, ad lelavana kipshuta, until the literal idea of the moon, ba'elam haza agashmi, in this low physical world, shein tachton lamata memenu, that there's nothing beneath it, nothing lower than it. V'lo yoid, not only does it affect and come down through all these levels until it hits this physical world, but it actually impacts and changes things in this physical world. That's how powerful the moon's fullness is. So he says in line 10, in this physical world itself, this is in such a manner that's revealed before everyone, even by the nations of the world, until the influences and effects also in living animals, in the haroya be'einav milui oir alavana. Even animals can see with their eyes how the moon's light is full. And it's also not only affects the nations of the world that they see it, not only do the animals see it, but it's also b'min atzemeach. It also affects in the species of vegetation. Mimeged gerish yirachim. From the sweetness of the moon causes the sweetness, the ripening of the fruits, that it makes them ripen quicker. There are such types of vegetation that the moon is what's responsible for their ripening. And therefore, so it's added in them, in the physical world, in the vegetation, an advantage and a perfection through the moon being full. Even in inanimate things, the moon has an effect as well. As it's known, that the moon moves the element of water, of the four elements of water, fire, wind, and earth. The moon moves the water. Water is an inanimate thing. It's not vegetation, it's not animal life, it's definitely not human. Shekain hayamim v'anacholim mitvasvim b'toisef salavana. The seas and the rivers are increased when the moon increases. I believe this is what's known as the lunar tables for the what's called the waves, the lunar effect on the waves, that the increased waves onto the beach reaching in further and stronger has to do with the lunar cycle. So we see this idea about the fullness of the moon manifests itself in all aspects of creation. That's an amazing thing that Rebbe points out over here. So the Rebbe says in line 14, Via Shleima, we could say, Shleima zu himebchina shalamayla mischalkus v'gdorim demaylo mata. This perfection and completion of the moon is beyond the divisions and categories of what is above and below. That's why it can permeate all these levels, from the highest most level to the lowest most level. So just like the physical moon impacts and its fullness is felt in the highest levels of Seder Ishtalshus, Malchus, Tatzilus, and its source above, and it also impacts and influences all the physical things until even the inanimate world. Therefore, it also, in its corollary of what it's supposed to do with the Simcha and the Hakel, is also something that transcends levels and definitions and divisions. Line 16, from this is understood also concerning the perfection of the 15th and completion of the 15th of Marcheshvan in joy and in Hakel. Just like the physical moon's perfection impacts all levels, so too the spiritual idea of the perfection of joy and hakel permeates all the levels, me'adarga achinailis, from the highest most level, al darga achitachtoina, to the lowest most level, tachten shein lamata menu, to the lowest level, there's nothing beneath it, just like the inanimate thing is affected. And here he's going to explain examples of where these permeate everything. So he says in line 18, Obapashtus, and simply put, Benegel la hakel, concerning hakel iskalos kol adargas should be Yisrael, the intermingling of all the levels amongst the Yidden, medargas haroish vad dargas haregel, whether there's a Jew that's on the level of the head of Bnei Yisrael, whether there's a Jew that's called the feet of Bnei Yisrael, ubalosh la'kosav, like the expression of the pasuk when it talks about the mitzvah of hakel, which is unique. It doesn't say this about any other mitzvah. Hanoshim v'noshim v'taf, men, women, and even little children. Asher taf im b'chinas haregel sheb'klal Yisrael. Little children are the level of the legs, the feet of Klal Yisrael. So we see how the perfection of the moon in Hakel impacts all Yidden. Ubenegel, the Simcha, the same thing concerning joy. Simcha hachideres b'chol mitziyusi shel adam, a joy that permeates the entire being of the person. Meharoish ad laregel, from the head until the foot. Ad lebchinas ha'ekev sheberegel, until even the heel of the foot, of a pashtus, and simply put, rikud beraglayim, dancing with our feet. So he says a very interesting thing about this. That look in footnote 28 on the bottom again, if you can read in the second column of the footnotes. Ubezeh gufa, in the dancing with their feet that the simcha permeates, ba'oifin sha'aymed mimekaymai v'roikid. It's such a type of dance that he arises and stands up from his place and dances. Sha'oz poil harikud hagbos kol haguf ad laroish. Because only when you're standing on your feet and dancing, so then it causes the entire body to be raised up, and including the head. And even more so, as opposed to when he's sitting on his chair, and if he's sitting on his chair and he's just tapping his feet, that only helps for raising his feet, but the rest of his body doesn't become raised up. Then the Rebbe also goes on further and says, especially if he's sitting down, he could sometimes be having a footstool, and the footstool raises up his feet from the earth, and therefore, since his feet is raised up from the earth, he's not really even accomplishing anything with his feet. Okay, back to the text itself, line 22. V'nekudas ha'inyan. The point of the matter is that on the 15th of Marcheshvan, in both Simcha and in Hakil, Shemizgala, Hashlemus, Hachin, Naila, Shein Lamaila, Meno, that's revealed the most highest perfection and completion, that there's nothing higher than it. Ad ledarge shalamayla megeder elim v'tachton, until a level that's beyond even the definitions of above and below. Shalachein nimsheches upoyelis bechol adargis ad lamata mata. Therefore, it comes down and affects in all the levels till the most lowest level. Tachton shein lamata memenu, something that is so low that there's nothing lower than it. Ois Dalet. V'yiratzon should be the will of Hashem. Shayidei ma'aseinu avadeseinu bechol ha'inyanim ha'amurim, through our actions and service in all the above mentioned aspects and things. Niske takef miyad l'simcha v'hakil b'shleimusam. We will merit immediately to joy and hakil in its perfect, most greatest form of simcha and hakil. Like it's going to be when Mashiach comes. Simcha soilam al roisham, there'll be an everlasting joy upon their heads when Mashiach comes. V'kol gol yeshuva heinon, a great congregation will return over here, meaning the ultimate level of hakil. V'gula mitzvah shlema idei David Malk Mashiach, and the true and complete redemption through David King Mashiach. V'l'shayin hakasa b'siyam v'choisim parshas ha'shavua, like the expression of the pasuk at the end of our parsha of the week, Hashem Yira Asher Omer Hayoim Bahar Hashem Yira. It says Hashem will see, that will be said today, that in the mountain Hashem will be visible, like it says over there after the Akedah, that Hashem appeared to this, to Avram Avinu in this mountain. Koloimar, this means to say, what is the meaning of this pasuk? Hashem Yira, and it will be called Hashem Yirah. So he says, Hashem Yivchar v'Yira lois hamokim azeh. Hashem will choose and show him, the Klal Yisrael, this place, lahashris boy Hachchinosoi ulahakriv kan hakorbonis, to make his Shechina dwell over there, and to bring on this location where the Akedah took place, the Har HaMoriah, they'll bring the korbanos. That's what it means Hashem Yira, meaning Hashem will in the future show and indicate that this place, Har HaMoriah, will be the place of the korbanos. Asher ye Omar Hayoim, that will be said today. Sheyoimru liyemei hadoiris olav bahar ze yiro HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'amoi. They will say today, for all generations, on this mountain Hashem will appear to his nation. Hayoim, where it says Hayoim means Hayomim Hasidim, the future days. Shekol adoiris haboyim hakoymas hamikra hazeh. All the future generations that are reading this pasuk, Aimrim ad hayom hazeh sho'imdim boy, they are saying until this day that we are standing in. In other words, Asher yomer hayom hazeh means whoever is reading it will be saying this day, today, this date on the calendar is the day that we know that Hashem appeared on it. So in other words, it doesn't mean Hayom Hazeh when Avram, it means all the generations that are reading in the Torah are calling it Hayom Hazeh. But Pashta, simply put, Binyan Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, the building, the third Beis HaMikdash, Mikdash Hashem Koinu Yadecha, the Mikdash that God built, his own hands will prepare, in the simple, in the literal physical world. That in that physical Beis HaMikdash, in this physical world, they will actually bring the korbanos. And in it they will see the Shechina with the physical eye mamish. Not only that, Kidarch Shabalir Kach Balirois, that Hikish Akosov Riyoschal Liriyosai, that the Pasuk compared your seeing, that you are coming to the Beis HaMikdash when you're Oila Regel to see Hashem, you're comparing it to His seeing us. That means that there's now a union between our physical eye perceiving Hashem and Kaviyachol Hashem's eye seeing us. To such a degree, the Vayera of Hashem, the idea that says that Hashem appeared to Avram at the beginning of our parsha, is not just a one-time event that happened by Avram, but it permeates and comes about and is drawn down in the entire world. When Mashiach comes, the glory of Hashem will become revealed, and all flesh will see. Not just in the materialism and the coarseness of the Jewish body. Like it says in our parsha by the Akedah, it says Avram saddled his donkey. What does it spiritually mean, saddling his donkey? Chamoyre is referring to the materialism, to the coarseness of the body, and he saddled it. So not only is the physical body of a Yid being saddled and used for godliness, alagam al chumrius oilam, also on the materialism and coarseness of the world. Koil gama chumrius the amadoim al including also the materialism and coarseness of the nation that's likened to the donkey. That it says in Rashi on this week's parsha that the fact that Avram Avinu left Yishmael and Eliezer next to the donkey, it was showing a comparison between them. Like we said before, Vero Kol Basar, all flesh will see, regardless of how coarse and how materialistic the bodies may be. So he concludes, Hey, line 12, so it should be for us, Gula Mitzvah Shlema de Mashiach Tzteinu, the true and complete redemption through Mashiach, but Tachsa Shlemus, and the ultimate perfection, Gula Sheinachara, Golas, a redemption that has no exile following it. Like we said before, Kol Godly Shuva Heina, a great congregation will return here. The Kaspam, Uzahavam Itam, and their silver and gold will be with them. Baruchnis Begashmis Gam Yochad, both their spiritual silver and gold, which goes under love and awe of a Jew for Hashem, and also their material, literal silver and gold. Then it will be the ultimate perfection and broadness in all matters. But Bahar Hashem, in the mountain of Hashem, Yerushalayim Yira Kodesh, that the holy city will have a very unique thing. It says Hashem will raise Yerushalayim 3 parsecs above. It's quite a distance. I don't remember exactly the measure of parsa in regards to miles, but it's or kilometers. But it's quite a distance. Shenemar says, from that pasuk, the Chazal derived this. In our holy land, Hashem will broaden your boundaries, so in other words, it will increase more than it was before, until there will be the perfection, completion in the entire world. So when it says about the birth of Peretz, it uses the word toldos, the offspring, the descendants. It says mole with the letters vav in it. L'mayla ma'ashlemis, the toldos mole, the olam iluya nivro. It's higher than where it says about ela toldos hashmayim va'aretz. Over there, it's also toldos with 2 vavs, because the world was also created complete, but it's going to be a higher state of completion and perfection. The chols of a poil mamish, and all this in actuality, lamatamas are tfachim below 10 handbreadths, in such a manner that Hashem did not delay them even an eye blink. This is especially so through increasing in joy, because joy breaks through barriers and boundaries. Through the joy we speed up even more, so as Kiyam Ayud Ela told us Peretz, the fulfillment of the promise. These are the offspring of Peretz. Shem Sheikha, the continuation of it is, who are the offsprings of Peretz? The offspring of Peretz from Yehuda? Yishai Hoylid is David. The final things that Yishai gave birth to David, and David means the King Mashiach. Bias David Malch Mashiach, the coming of David, the King Mashiach. V'meir Remeinu Mamish, speedily in our days Mamish. And here, quite just Ad Mashlita Ahmed Blake Hamasi, the Rebbe stood up, completely, completely upright. He began to sing the Hakafis niggin of his father. Yadada yadada yadada. The Rebbe was dancing on his place by the Farbrengen at the table, at his chair over there, with great joy.
Beautiful, thank you. Recording stopped. Thank you.